I can just see one week us doing the whole thing and you forgetting to record it.
Oh, that's definitely going to happen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to FootballShock episode 3. This is John, Luton Town fan.
James Rocker, Manchester United fan.
My name is Shay. I'm an Arsenal fan.
Kieran/Colt, and I'm a Leeds fan.
I'm Brad, and I'm an Arsenal fan.
And guys, we've got a lot to talk about today, so we'll start with last week's fixtures. First of all, we obviously had Sheffield United versus City. Now, guys, I remember a big thing in last week's episode. We were all saying, 5-0, 6-0 to City? It wasn't quite like that. So should we start with Kieran? Give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think we all got the winner right. I think the winner wasn't too difficult to predict. Sheffield United were definitely more solid than we all gave them credit for. But ultimately, it's another L and it's another game where they haven't scored. And they didn't really even look like scoring in the game. I think they had a couple of times. They actually looked like they were going to have really good chances. But watching it, I was just saying to my dad at the time, they're not scoring. They could have it 2 yards out from goal. And I don't have any confidence they're going to score at the minute. And I think that sums up their problem. Like I said, they didn't get slapped like we all said. But ultimately, it's 0 points. And I think, 1 point from 7 games. Then Fulham and West Brom are probably my teams to go down at the minute.
So not Burnley then. Obviously, they're not performing well either.
No, Sheffield United could get themselves out of it. But from what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing anything of them that suggests they can get out of it. But, stranger things have happened. I think we'll probably agree that West Brom and Fulham are going to go down. They haven't really added anything to the league. They've looked very poor. And they're kind of, I think, everyone's bankers to go down. Burnley always seem to get out of it. And they've got more now sort of, I think, escaping relegation than Sheffield United have. So I'd stick with Sheffield United, to be honest.
And what about you, James? What do you think about the Sheffield United Man City result?
That result is actually, I think I was one of the only people, maybe Shay as well, that we both actually predicted a bit of a lighter scoreline. You guys all said the hammer-ins. We both said it would be a City win quite comfortably, but Sheffield United would dig deep and make it tough. And I suppose we were, closer in that regard. But a bit like what Kieran said there, 1-0 win. If it wasn't for Ramsdale in goal, I reckon they'd have conceded at least 2 or 3 more. He actually had a pretty good performance, and I'd probably consider him for, like a team of the week or something like that. Though he was on the losing side, I thought he had a pretty good game. It was a nice goal from Kyle Walker as well. Seems to be actually playing some of the best football I've seen him play for a while, which is since that Leicester loss that they took. But yeah, to focus in on Sheffield again, unlike Kieran, I think they'll actually avoid relegation. I think this year, I agree, Fulham and West Brom probably look favourites to go down, but I'm actually going to go Burnley as the third one. Sean Dyche's being completely underfunded now for God knows how many years, and he just doesn't really have anything else to offer, really. Like, he's been strangled a bit at Burnley.
I just think with that, like I said to James, I think the thing with relegation is experience, I think, always out. And Burnley, I think this has always been a thing about Burnley every start of the season. They've always been kind of everyone's thoughts about they're going to go down. But they always seem to solidify throughout the season and finish in a decent position. And I just can't see that changing this year. I think Sean Dyche at this point knows how to keep a team up. I just don't think he knows how to progress the team from there. I can't really see Burnley going down. I think his experience will count in that. But you never know. Sheffield United could turn it around, but it would have to be a massive, massive turnaround, to be honest.
I've got to ask, when we're talking about Burnley, if Burnley were to go down, what do you guys think will happen with Nick Pope? Do you think he'll move on to get a chance for the England squad, or will he stay with Burnley in the Championship? Bradley, let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think he would go. I think he's way too good for Burnley. I think he should be definitely a team within the top half of the table, consistently finishing the top half of the table as well. And I also think he's a better shout than Jordan Pickford for England. He doesn't make as many mistakes, and let's be honest, he's facing far more on his goal than what Jordan Pickford is,
That's a whole other debate, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think he has to move on. In terms of our national team, I don't think there's been a time in our lifetime where we haven't had a definitive number one. People will say Pickford is Southgate's favourite. Yeah, he is. But Pickford, for me, isn't outstandingly better than the other two. I mean, if Nick Pope wants to cement his place, especially for the Euros next year, and also for the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, I think if Burnley were to go down, he would have to move on. He'd have no choice. It'd be very hard for Southgate to pick him if he's playing the Championship.
No, you're right. Well, on that note then, guys, we better move on. Like Kieran said, we've got a lot more to talk about. Let's go on to then the game of the week so far, Leeds against Leicester. What a cracking result that was. Kieran, we've got to get your thoughts first.
Can we let the two fans of the Woolwich Wanderers go first? Because I know they're fucking desperate to talk about this one. Now, I'm going to get in before them two fucking clowns revel in this too much. There's two sides of Kieran that have an opinion in this game. There's the sensible side, which says, look, I said this at the start of the season, that these Leeds are liable to get a couple of these results throughout the season. Because of the way we play such a high line, and we commit so many bodies forward, we are very susceptible to getting caught on the counter. And with Phillips gone, like I said last week, that was always a worry for me because he would be playing in that position that was exploited by Leicester. And you've got to hand it to Leicester. They had a game plan that they executed perfectly. And like I said, from a sensible point of view, it was our first real bad performance of the season. It was the first time I looked at it and was like, we were fucking shit that game. And even then, we still had chances. We didn't take them. It was just a really bad day at the office. But,
coming from you, Kieran, that is
but then, like I said, there's two sides of Kieran on this. Then there's the competitive side of me, which, as you all know, I'm probably the worst fucking loser in the world. And I am still absolutely fucking raging about this performance. For Leeds United to lose 4-1 at home, are you fucking mad? Like I said, Leicester came with a game plan and executed it, but it was so obvious what their game plan was going to be. That is Leicester. Jamie Vardy is probably the best counter-attacking player in the league. I think Roger said it on Monday Night Football, and we just weren't prepared for it. It was such an obvious game plan, and we did fucking nothing to prepare for it. And I'm still fuming. Bamford, I praised him last week. This week he wasn't good enough. He missed two chances he really should be putting away. The first one was, I think, after 30 seconds, and then they got the other end and scored the first. Would have changed the game completely. I'm just still absolutely raging. And the worst part of it is 2-0. We went in, we came out for the second half, and we scored after like 3 minutes. Pablo then goes and hits the bar. So I'm thinking we're going to get back into this game. They like tease me, we get back into it. And then we go and give away another fucking shit counter-attacking goal, and the game started. And then just to fucking piss me off even more, they get a penalty, which is like a borderline one. But at that point, the game's gone anyway. I'm still raging. I'm still fuming. But like I said, there's two sides battling me because I've got to be realistic in the sense that we're a newly promoted team. Leicester are a very good side. And in essence, we're built for Leicester. I hate fucking losing 21. Leicester are cunts this week because they've annoyed me. I hate losing. And losing like that, it pisses me off. I'm not going to sit here and say, it was disappointing, but we move on to the next game. Fuck that shit. I want to win every fucking game. I know it's unrealistic, but I hate losing. And that is what Leeds United are about.
Well, do you know what?
End of fucking run.
You will get over it. You will get over it. Because I must admit, Leicester, I said it last week, I reckon they'll hit top 4 again this year. Again.
Yeah,
they'll hit
that's the central part of me, yeah.
Shay, I think you wanted to say something.
No surprises really about Leicester winning. Leicester are a very good established Premier League side. And I've said it before, Leeds have had a better start than what people had envisioned, but these results will come. And unfortunately, it came hard, like a ton of bricks, basically. And as I said before, Leeds United will stay up in the Premier League. But who have they beaten so far? Nobody. They beat the two worst teams in the Premier League, Sheffield United and Fulham, both bum teams. And then they beat the team that finished 17th last year. So, I'm not surprised that Leeds got humbled. I'm glad that obviously Mr. Colt Kelly got humbled because he just talks nonsense. So yeah, I've got nothing against Leeds personally. They've got a good manager, some good players. Yeah, back to reality for Leeds.
Yeah, no, I don't think anything's ever going to humble me, mate. I'm always going to be on your case about your tourist club. But I do actually have to agree with you that Leeds won't get relegated. Like I said at the start of the season, there's at least 3 worse teams than us in division than Leeds. I think Leeds, we're 12th at the minute. And like I said at the start of the season, that's probably where we're going to end up. And I'll be over the moon with that. I think that'd be a good first season. It's like I said, I said at the start of the season, we'd get a couple of these. I'm annoyed when they happen because as a fan you are. But I actually agree with Shane that we won't get relegated. We'll finish around 12th. I'm not hearing this about us being a myth and all this rubbish I've seen this week because Leicester are a great time. They beat City 5-2 this season, for God's sake. Like, they can score goals. They beat Arsenal the week before at the Emirates. So it's annoying. I'm pissed off. But I do agree with Shane that we ain't going down.
I just want to... You was talking about hat-trick Bamford last week here. And I mean, where the hell was he? I mean, I saw that header from literally about 3 yards out. And Robin Cott, you try comparing this man to Gabriel. Sit down. This guy's given away 3 goals so far from just calamity defending and naive defending.
You know what, mate? I mean, while your club still employs Mustafi, I ain't hearing anything to you about centre defenders.
Mustafi's not playing, mate. But look, listen, Mustafi hasn't been the guy that's given away 3 goals. But I said to you as well that I just think Leeds, you will be very naive if you go into every single game and play the way that you've been playing in the Championship. You have to have a different sort of game plan. You said it yourself about Vardy. You know, he's the best player on the counter attack, and he caught you slipping. He caught you cold that day. So yeah, I mean, it was a result that I kind of expected from Leicester, and yeah.
John, just before we move on, in response to Bradley, the fact that Phillips was missing was a huge part of why that result was, because Leicester exploiting the gap that Phillips would normally be playing in. I think when he comes back, you won't see us as brittle as that at the back, because he protects that back four. He's the enforcer of that midfield, and you could really tell we were missing him on Monday.
If you rely on one player in the whole team to not fall apart, then surely you're not that good of a team.
No, I don't think because we beat Villa without him, so I don't think we fall apart. But I'm thinking against top teams like Leicester, who are very good at playing on the counter attack, you'll notice the difference, and that's not just for Leeds. I mean, I think if you take like Van Dijk at the Liverpool team, you're going to see them concede a lot more goals now. It's just a fact of football. If you take away an important player, you see the effect, and I think you can see the effect on Monday. But it is what it is. We have to move on. I have to take it.
James, have you got any final thoughts on the Leeds-Leicester game?
I'll say the scoreline surprised me a bit. I didn't expect a 4-1, and from what I heard, it did seem a bit harsh on Leeds. The first half are very poor from everything I heard and sort of saw. The second half I heard was actually a lot more even.
It was.
If anything, Leeds were possibly even the better team in that second half, yet still ended up losing it on paper. But when you're chasing the game, I suppose towards the end of it, you're going to concede goals. But at the same time as well, Leeds playing their own game and obviously being a bit naive and stuff coming up. At the start of the season, I think that's completely fair. You've come up, you have a style of play, see it out. It's worked for half of the game, seemingly. They're beating teams, lost to some others. But at the same time, I do agree with Bradley. If it gets to push and shove towards the end of the second half of the season, at that point, you're not picking up results because teams may have found a way to play against you. Then you do need to have a look at yourself and change your style of play. But at the same time, I think Bielsa, we all know how detailed he is. I don't think he'd be worried about trying to change tactics to a certain degree. He's got a plan for everything. We all saw the presentation or whatever that he gave after the spying incident or whatever last year. It was absolutely brilliant.
He ain't worried. Bielsa ain't worried. I don't think we'll change the way we play necessarily. I think he'll just come up with slight variations of what he does.
He'll tweak things.
But I mean, there's a big part of me that even if, obviously I don't want to see us go down. Like I said, I don't think we'll be close to going down. So we'll win more games than we lose. But there's a big part of me that doesn't want to see us change the way we play. Like I said last week, he's imprinted the values of the club and how we play football. And that ultimately is what I love about the club at the minute. With no fear, we go for teams. Yes, we'll hold results that Monday, but I'd rather watch us fucking go for it than park the bus against people.
Yeah, I hear you. You know what? You're kind of going through what I went through a year ago when Luton got promoted from League One to the Championship. We were playing this wicked diamond formation, attacking football. It was beautiful. And then when suddenly we're in a relegation battle, we had to play it from the back, and it just changed the whole way. But, hopefully you can do what Luton did. Stay up another season. That's the best you're going to get, let's be honest.
Everything else is fucking Nathan Joe. I've heard it all now.
I think we've spoken enough about the second biggest team in Yorkshire.
Let's move on to Man United, Arsenal. Now, should we start with James?
Do we have to?
But nah. This is what we've all been waiting for.
I'll be brutally honest. I said it on the podcast in week 2. I felt it had that air. It had everything about it in the air. I just didn't feel confident about the game. Everything was setting this situation up for us to lose, and I felt that we would. I can't remember if I predicted a 1-0 loss actually, or 2-1 or something like that. But it just. I mean, the boys will say in a second. Shay and Bradley obviously very hyped up about the result, and fair play to them, they should be. It was a very good performance from Arsenal. Can't take anything away from it. But they seem to make out as we got dominated. Fair enough, each to their own. I definitely say they controlled the game from start to finish. Absolutely controlled us all over the pitch. But where I draw the line at a team being dominated or not, which I suppose is maybe up to personal opinion, De Gea didn't have to do anything all game. I think he only faced maybe 1 or 2 shots on target in the whole game. And I can't understand how that's classed as dominating. I understand, obviously, Arsenal had a chance sort of here and there. But if you're not actually troubling the keeper, then I don't know, I just can't see it. But in terms of stifling our midfield, we got absolutely strangled within there in terms of creating chances. It just wasn't happening. And then it just all fell apart really with that Pogba penalty. I thought it was weak, but I still think it was a penalty. I won't argue that. It was foolish from him, wasn't sensible. And, you give that away, it's fine margins in a game. And that's what ended up losing us the game at the end of the day. So I just have to nip it in the bud as much as it. I'm so upset with it. But it's another poor result, and there was another poor result from United tonight against Istanbul. God, we'll probably get onto that in a little bit.
That's
So
our main topic.
I'll let Bradley ever say.
I was absolutely ecstatic with the win because we went up there with absolutely no respect for United. We was on them from minute one. They couldn't get the ball into their forwards. Every single time they tried to do it, Gabriel was just coming in and cleaning up. I thought the two men that we had in midfield against their four, and this is where I say we dominated the game, because we had two midfielders against four and they completely and utterly bossed it. That's what I mean by dominating. I don't mean that. For me, you don't have to absolutely pepper a goal to dominate a game. If you win a game and your midfield nullifies their midfield, your defense completely nullifies their attack, and even your attackers sort of chip in and they get a couple of chances and you get the result, I still think you can say that you dominated the game. I look at Harry Maguire, 80 million, and I look at Gabriel, 27 million, and I just think you were looking at him as well. I just think it's an absolute miss. I think it's a miss by a lot of clubs. It's an absolute steal in this market. Thomas Partey as well, 45 million. I mean, when you put the two of them together, that's 70 million for a spine. That's less than what Liverpool paid for Van Dijk. Now, I don't want to go over the top, but you could instantly see that they've come into this Arsenal team and they've made a massive difference. We've never played like that away from home. It's the best result that I've seen under Mikel Arteta, and it's the most impressed that I've been with the performance of the team. And El Neni, I mean, where did that come from? Mohamed El Busquets. He was going ham in that midfield. So yeah, it was a great result. The key thing for Arsenal now is consistency. Like, there's no point us winning that game now 1-0 and then losing or drawing to Villa at home next week. It's a win, it has to be a win, and we need to now start winning 4 or 5 games in a row and keep some consistency, because that's the key thing for Arteta this season. Because I think if any team is going to break into that top 4, it's just all about a consistent run.
It's a good point, Bradley. Before we go to Shay, I've got to ask Kieran, do you think that Arsenal realistically get 4 or 5 games winning in a row?
Not a fucking chance. Common sense is about to come through now, because I can understand why Arsenal fans are happy with the result. It's their first win at Old Trafford in so long. But let's have a dose of realism here. That game, to me, was like watching Undertaker wrestle in 2020. It's interesting for about 5 minutes, but after that, you just see it for what it is, a poor performance. There was 2 poor sides playing a very dull game that was decided by, I think you could argue it was a penalty, and you could argue it was a soft penalty, but that's what the game was decided by. It was 2 poor sides. If that game finished 0-0, neither team would be able to complain that much at all. It was just 2 poor teams going out. And the only Shane and Bradley sat here last week and reviewed the Chelsea-Man U game, the 0-0 draw from the week before, and said, it's 2 managers boring each other, boring everyone to tears. It was a poor game. The only difference between that game and this one was the penalty. That was it. It was, this is why Arsenal fans just piss me off, because they just over-hype and over-celebrate everything. Yes, it's a decent win, but you're acting like you're fucking Bayern Munich. It's like Roy Keane said on Sky Sports. The overreaction is absolutely ridiculous. It was a good win, but either team, I think both teams were very poor. Both teams didn't really create a lot. Both goalies didn't really have a lot to do. Like I said, to me, if that game finished 0-0, neither set of fans could bitch about it. The only thing that decided was the penalty. It was a silly tackle by Pogba. I still think it's a bit soft. But to me, it just sums up, I have not seen anything from Arsenal so far to make me sit up and think, right, they're getting top 4 this season. I really haven't. I mean, I know Brad and Shane have come at me out of this, but this is a dose of realism for them, because I think they're just so gassed after the win. They haven't come back down to earth yet, to be honest.
For someone that seems to spend the majority of their day talking and looking at what Arsenal are doing, you clearly don't see much, do you? What did I just say? I mean, the intensity that we showed, we absolutely bossed that midfield. And not only that as well, you talk about there only being a penalty in that. Well, I would argue that Saka had a free header. Lacazette set one up in a great position for Aubameyang. On another day, it could have been 2-3-0. I was listening to United fans on United Fan TV saying we were lucky to get into half-time and it be 0-0.
Which I agree with, but then I could argue at the same time at the end, if that rebound, I don't know, the Van de Beek ball goes in and it ends 1-1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
talk
Yeah,
about things that don't happen.
But we won the game, though. That's what I'm trying to say.
100%,
And if those other goals come in before half time, then that just reinforces that win even more.
Of course, yeah.
Shay, you got any thoughts on the game?
A very, very good result. I was ecstatic with how Partey and El Neni played together. It's one thing when a new signing comes in, but the fact that he's coming and he's made El Neni look good as well, it says a lot. People keep talking about this pathetic run or some running away from home, but the only run that I really cared about is winning trophies. So very, very good result. But this will mean nothing if we lose to Aston Villa. So we must build on this now. If we go and get battered about Aston Villa this weekend, all this will be forgotten. So it was a good result, but Man United, on the other hand, I feel for United fans because Man United, unfortunately, are like Jekyll and Hyde. 1 week they go to Paris, they look really good. Then they play us, they look awful. They look awful tonight. Yeah, I mean, if I was Man United fan, I'd be very, very concerned with what I've been seeing from some of those players, especially that defense as well at times.
Shay, do you not see my point though? In that, I think you're getting way too overexcited way too quickly. El Neni, I thought he was good. I think he was actually better than Partey on Sunday.
I would agree with that, by the way.
This is a man that for 4 years Arsenal fans have called Mohamed El Sideways. Just because he's had a couple of good games doesn't mean he's going to get you back to where you want to go. Leeds have also played Man City and Liverpool this season, so you can't use that as an excuse. We've both lost the same amount of games, and you're ripping Leeds. So what?
But who have you beat though? But who have you beat?
Who have you beat? Who have you beat?
Man United away from home.
Man United and Poor. Istanbul.
Who have you beat? You beat nobody.
Man United and Poor.
Come on.
You lost against City and Liverpool. So you lost against the top teams go against. United have just lost to some Turkish fucking dairy farmers. So you can't.
Well, you have to understand,
mate. You've also
not competing with City and Liverpool. Yeah. We're not competing with them. I've always said from the start of the season, the games that I will look at are the games against Chelsea, Man United, and Tottenham. Beat Man United, Tottenham coming up in December, Chelsea coming as well. I will judge us by those games. City and Liverpool, we're not competing with those two teams. We're not. It's a simple fact.
What about teams like Leicester and Wolves though? You got to
compare
yourself to them these days as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, those as well. But generally, long term, realistically, I mean, we are really realistically competing with Chelsea, Man United, and Tottenham long term for these Champions League spots. Leicester will be thereabouts. Chelsea, Tottenham, Man United are the games that I'll look at. And I honestly believe that if we play to our strengths, I believe when we play Chelsea, we will beat them 100%.
I think we need to go on to our main topic, which is
Kieran, key thing that we've forgotten about, the player of the week. What do we think from the last Premier League games? We've got to go through it now, haven't we? It's a bit more of a tricky one this time. There was no hat tricks, nothing like that. I'm just going to put the name out there first. I would go for
Ward-Prowse. 2 goals versus Aston Villa and a 4-3 win away from home. I think it was.
Who did you say? Sorry, John.
Ward-Prowse from Southampton.
I'd agree with Ward-Prowse. I mean, I actually was also going to say Vardy, as much as it pains me to say. So I thought he was fantastic on Monday, but Ward-Prowse, I think, is probably the best shout. I think, his free kicks were absolutely unreal. He had a great performance. You can't really argue with his stats.
Yeah. His link-up play was very, very good as well.
I mean, the player I'd probably put forward, it pains me to say it because he's a Liverpool player, but I think Jota. I think he's come into that Liverpool team and he's getting key goals for them. They found another player that can either start the game and play the full 90 minutes, or he can come on as a sub and have an impact. So they're not just reliant on that front three. And I think it's proving dividends in a few games already this season. I think he's got 2 winning goals, possibly got a goal to go ahead in another game as well.
He scored 10 goals in 7 games. I mean, it's a madness right now.
Hat trick yesterday in the Champions League.
Yeah, in the Champions League.
Yeah. Based on that, it would have to be in
Premier League. We don't care about Premier League.
Yeah, for me, Hakim Ziyech, for me, player of the week, or he should be up there basically.
Good shout. And Kieran, you got a thought on that?
Just a little one. What did I tell you? That Chelsea got rid of Willian to bring in a higher quality of player, and you took the scraps. And you've just you already agree with me. I told you this Ziyech was a better player than Willian. They've upgraded. That's why Willian left, because he wouldn't have been playing ahead of
him. Mate, they need to upgrade their manager first. So just pipe down.
Another example of me being right. I'm just saying.
Nobody was disputing Ziyech was a better player. What I said was that Chelsea offered Willian a contract and he turned it down. Now, whether he would have started in that team, he probably wouldn't have, but he was offered a contract, and that was my point. So, like, you made to say he was a reject at Chelsea. He wasn't a reject. They offered him a contract, and he said no.
Well, as obviously last week, we had a very detailed discussion about Arsenal, Ozil, Arteta. This week, we're going to go into a bit more detail about Pogba, United, and the current squad they've got. Now, guys, I'm going to start by giving you a quote from Gary Neville. It says, from last week's performance, if we're really discussing Pogba's performance, he was really, really poor in every part of the game. Simple as that. He wasn't alone. I thought McTominay was poor. Fred was below his normal standard. El Nene and Thomas Partey knew their jobs and dominated. Has anyone got a thought on that?
I mean, I think we already spoke about the game. I've got a lot of thoughts on Man U as a club. It depends how PG you want to keep this podcast. But Man U as a club are a fucking basket case. I mean, the thing is, as a Leeds fan, on principle, I hate United. But like I said, my granddad's a United fan, my uncle is, James is. And these people aren't people who are annoying fans. So I actually do have a bit of sympathy with them. But the fact is, Man United as a club is broken. It's been broken for 7 years now. And the fact that a club of that size does not have a director of football is absolutely shocking. It's the height of mismanagement. It's like, I don't know, I'm not sure how James feels. Actually, I've got a pretty good idea how James feels about it. But it must be so frustrating to have a club, a global brand like Man United, just be mismanaged from the top down. And what you're seeing on the pitch now is a reflection of how the club has been run over 7 years. Pogba, there's a reason why Fergie let Pogba go. I feel like they constantly, in the transfer market, they're shocking. So obvious they need this one player, and then they either get taken to the cleaners, or in the case of Sancho, didn't pay it, and then they end up getting players like Cavani in desperation. And I think what you're seeing on the pitch from United is just reflective of the chaos behind the scenes. Ollie is like that kid in school who always gets threatened with isolation, but never actually goes into isolation because he always starts behaving himself just before the teacher punishes him. That is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He comes this close to getting fucking sacked, and then have a couple of good results, and then he'll go back to it again. But they've got Everton this weekend. And if he loses that, apparently he might be gone. But obviously, that could just be paper talk.
And we better just confirm what Kieran's talking about. It was a 2-1 loss against Istanbul in the Champions League. Bit disappointing. And I think we'll have to move on to James about this.
I mean, the result tonight, I'm absolutely fuming. Absolutely fuming. I mean, the first goal, I'm not sure if any of you guys actually have seen it yet, or if you watched the game.
I have, yeah.
Where the hell's our defence? It's only the 15th minute or so in the game, and there's not a defender in sight. I mean, I'm sorry. That's what you teach 6-year-olds down at the park. At least if they've got one attacker, have 2 defenders. If you're chasing the game in the 89th minute, all right, I'll allow it. You're chasing the game and you need to get a goal. But it just baffles me. I mean, like you're saying, we're paying 80 million for a centre-back. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a good player in Harry Maguire, but 80 million was completely overpriced. And it's because we showed our desperation for him. We didn't have any other target, or it didn't seem like we ever did. And at that point, Leicester can just hold out. And then it gets towards the end of the transfer window and you kind of have to pay it or you're not getting the player.
I've got a question for you, James. Yeah. That first goal today where every outfield player has gone up for a corner. And this isn't like it's the last minute where you're chasing the game and you need a goal. That you get that. But this is like the first half where it's 0-0. The game's still in the balance. That, to me, you can't blame Ollie for that. You can't blame the board for that. The only people you can blame that are the fucking players. Me and you know, if we play fucking 6-a-side football, that if we get a corner or whatever, at least one person has to stay back. You can't all go rushing up. And we don't get paid 200 grand a week to make that decision.
Honestly, I'm baffled by it. I don't understand it. But this is actually one situation where I probably will put a bit of blame on Ollie at that point. Fair enough. It's in-game, and I know everything can happen quite quickly. But surely he or Mike Phelan on the bench must have been able to see no one's marking that one striker if the ball gets played over the top. I hope they were. I suppose I haven't really had a look or seen or checked. Surely someone must have been shouting at the defenders or a defender. I know Matic, I think, was the closest player to him at the time. And the thing is, Matic is slow as hell, so he's not catching it. Even though it was only Demba Ba and he's 35 years old.
Oh, yeah, Demba Ba. The fact it's Demba Ba just makes it even funnier because you love that man after the Gerrard slip. So the fact he's just done that to you makes it funnier.
I feel like we gave it to him. Do you know what I mean? Probably as a gift for the Gerrard slip.
The biggest problem for Man United at the moment, and don't get me wrong, the board, Ed Woodward, they are a problem. But the biggest problem is on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Frodo Baggins. That is your biggest problem at the moment. The guy has no tactical nous. He just plays off good vibes, good feelings, and he clearly has favourites that I just think should not be playing in your team. I don't know what McTominay's doing in your team. I don't know how the hell Donny van de Beek didn't get in. I was actually listening to Goldbridge on United Stand after the game, because I like to see his reaction and see his salty tears. But what he was actually saying was, for like 64 minutes, Donny van de Beek was the best player on the pitch, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer takes him off. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Honestly, I agree with that substitution tonight. It baffles me a bit again. I thought Pogba had another poor game. I thought the Arsenal game was a poor one. I thought tonight was a poor one. I would have rather taken him off than Van der Beek tonight. In terms of Ollie, like, I understand a lot of people do think this about him not having any tactical awareness, but I can't agree with that. And as much as these results happen and they really annoy me, we played against teams like City, beat them 3 times out of 4 last year. We played against like PSG, for instance, the other day. Tactically, he outdid them. I agree, against you guys, we got tactically outdone. But it's hard to say. It's one game I watch United and Ollie and think, wow, like, we took that team to the cleaners, like against Salzburg. Again, that was a great performance the other night. Tactically, we soaked up that pressure from them. Rashford came on and then we just killed them off at the end. But the Salzburg performance and the PSG performance, both of them were so perfect all over the pitch, I felt.
Because the reason they're perfect is clear. Ollie has one way of playing, and that is to sit back and counter-attack. And it will work against teams like City and PSG and Leipzig and all these teams who are used to having possession of the ball, because it plays into their hands. And that's why United look so good against those teams. But it's the teams like tonight, where you have all the possession in the world and don't have a fucking clue how to break a team down. That is the genesis of what the problem is with Solskjaer. He knows one way of successful playing, and that is it. And when a team lets United have the ball, that's where they struggle. Bruno was brought in to I think, help with that. I mean, he's still Goldberg is still good, but he tonight was poor. And you see, when he's poor, the rest of the team is genuinely poor. And the problem Solskjaer has, when a manager starts to come under pressure and their fans want him out, in this case, Ollie out, my first question to those fans is, right, but who do you get? Who's available midway through the season? Come in. The problem with Ollie is Poch is sat there waiting in the wings, and he basically, on Monday Night Football, was touting for a job. He was saying he wanted to get back in. He used Monday Night Football as a fucking audition. Like, I don't think he barely talked. Thank God he didn't talk about the Leeds Leicester game that much. But he basically used that as an audition. He thought this was fucking X Factor, because he sat there and just touted himself all the top jobs he could. And that, to me, heaps more and more pressure on Ollie, because those fans who want him out can now sit there and say, well, Poch is available, bring him in.
He has done well. Sorry, Dave, but he has done so well by being away from football for a little while. He's waiting for everyone else to fuck up, and then he can jump in and reap the rewards of it. And I reckon he's going to land himself a top club very soon.
It's going to be United. By the end of this season, Poch will be in the United job. I'm fairly confident.
And that's the one thing I said last week as well, that I do think you are top manager. And let's be honest, I think Mauricio Pochettino is a top manager. He had limited resources at Spurs. If he gets the resources, and you can say Woodward and United, they're poor, but the thing is they spend money. If they get a manager who knows how to spend that money, like Pochettino, I think you're just 1 or 2 players away from really challenging. So,
I mean, if I really had to pick a manager, though, the one that I think's completely going under the radar, don't get me wrong, before I actually say the manager, I'm not an Ollie out person right now. I think we've had too much chop and change at United over the past couple of years, and I really want to see a bit of stability in it. And don't get me wrong, obviously I'm annoyed about the last couple of results, but there are performances in it where I do see a more exciting United. I do see a better team ethos than I have in the past few years. And I just want to see it out a bit longer. Don't get me wrong, if the results still don't go our way, you can't really defend the guy at that point. But the manager that I'm thinking, honestly, is maybe Max Allegri.
Is Max Allegri available? Is he not in a job at the minute? I would have thought that is on the radar. He's not.
He's still not in a job.
The reason I'd prefer him probably to someone like Pochettino is he's a manager that's been at the top tier. He's won titles, and I think that's a big thing. Pochettino's never won anything, and Max Allegri knows how to deal with personalities better. I think that's something that in Pochettino's Tottenham, you really saw he kind of lost the dressing room, or it felt that way, and he just couldn't pick them back up. And I think Allegri would just bring that sort of steel to United that you'd want. He might get a player like Pogba back on board. I can't remember if he managed him at Juventus or not. I could be wrong about that, but I think he might have had him in the last season or two when Pogba was there. But at the same time, I mean, if I'm going to talk about Pogba, I'm not sure if we should just cash in on him at this point. The good performances are too far between. Like I can't.
To be honest, that's my next point. I think we can sit here and talk about managers and board level and stuff all day. To be honest, they get the blame too much. I think the players need to take a fucking look at themselves, because this group of players threw Mourinho under the bus. They stopped playing for him. I think to an extent they haven't stopped playing for Ollie, but you can definitely see the tide turning. And at this point, I get what you're saying. Allegri can manage personalities, but I think there's some personalities in that dressing room that are just unmanageable, that possibly just don't listen. Ollie has not, like that first goal today, Ollie has not told them to go out there and put everyone forward for a corner. I just genuinely think there's too many players at that club who honestly think the name on the back of the shirt is bigger than the name on the front. And that is the problem. It's why I think Fergie got rid of Pogba. I think there's another few players in there that have a similar attitude but are not quite as obvious with it. I just think at this stage, the players have got to take a look at themselves, because there's something intrinsically rotten within that dressing room to the point that they're unmanageable. A lot of them, I genuinely think, are unmanageable at this point because their egos are so overinflated. Man United is a huge club and they're on huge wages, and they've let that go to their head. And because of that, you're not being successful on the pitch because they're not playing as a team. They're playing for themselves. And that is the key problem you're seeing with the club. That really sums up what issues you're having. Players don't give a fuck about the club. They care about their own interests. I don't think that you can get anyone in. And until that dressing room gets an overhaul, you ain't winning shit.
Well, that's the thing, ain't it? I feel like when a player finds out that they're moving to United, they feel like that's a luxury. That is, they've made it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've made it. They don't need to try that much harder. And James, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're all like that. But there is so many players now moving to United and then just not performing.
The money.
Yeah, but I don't think it's got anything to do so much as the player. I think it's about having a top manager who can manage those egos. Part of management is managing egos, managing different characters in the dressing room, getting the best out of certain players. And let's be honest, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not that person. He's got no credentials. He got relegated with a Cardiff team and he won a league with Mulder. Who gives a fuck about Norwegian football? You know what I mean? He's done nothing before this to show he has
the whole country
manage. Yeah, to manage a massive club like Man United. He seems like a guy that's he's happy to be there. You know what I mean? He's absolutely ecstatic that he's the manager of this top club. You need a top manager, and I'm telling you, he will be able to get that dressing room ticking. You know, if it's a Mauricio Pochettino, I agree kind of with what you're saying, James, as well. Max Allegri could be great for that, but I just think the best signing any club can make is your manager.
But in terms of manager not having credentials, this isn't a stab at you and Arsenal fans. I know that obviously Arteta had his time as the assistant manager at City, but he didn't have any managerial credentials being the top manager prior to that. I agree. I like what he's doing at Arsenal at the moment. I think he is helping you turn it around. So not necessarily having those credentials doesn't necessarily mean you will have a bad time as a manager at a top club. It's just whether or not, I suppose, like you're saying, you can get the players to play the way that you want, and if you are tactically aware. And I think with Solskjaer at the moment, we're just not seeing it regularly enough for me, and that's the issue.
Don't get me wrong, James. If Mikel Arteta had gone 100 games, so the same amount of games as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and getting results like that and putting in performances like that, I would be saying the same shit about him at that point. 100%. I'd be saying you need to go, because there's no major improvement. You still don't know your first 11. You know, that's not good enough after 100 games. You've got enough players there to have a consistent formation, you know, the consistent back four, midfield.
I personally think that we do have that, actually. I think our front three is Martial, Greenwood, and Rashford. And then our back four seems to be Shaw, Maguire, Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka and De Gea in goal. It's more the midfield now that I think we've got Van der Beek, and Matic getting older.
I think we need to move on, boys.
But before we do move on to Premier League predictions, now that Luton are on a fine run of form, we've got to talk about Championship, all right? Come on. We've done Rotherham over. We are currently 1 point off playoffs, 2 points off promotion. Do you see Luton promoted next season? What do you reckon?
Not a chance. I love you, John, but no.
Nah. I'd love to see it, but nah. The thing is with Luton, even if they did get promoted, the money just isn't there. I think as a Luton fan, it'd be a novelty to see you in the Premier League. But I don't think you'd want it. I think in the Premier League, it'll be a tough season for you. I think the Championship will be a lot more fun.
It will be worse than Derby County, I think.
Yeah.
When Derby got
Derby
promoted at that
08.
time, it would be, it'll be spankings every week.
Derby got, 11 points throughout the whole season?
Yeah. One win.
Yeah.
One win.
Honestly, I know for a fact the Luton team right now would do better than that, but I will not lie to you. It is what it is. But
Who knows?
Probably beat United, to be fair.
We're doing our station. But
I'd love to see it, though, definitely.
Let's move on to the Premier League then. Guys, we've got a few choice games coming up this week. First of all, we'll start with Leeds versus Palace. Not a bad game. It should be quite interesting. Kieran, give us your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's a tough one because, like I said, Philip's still out. Rodrigo's actually tested positive for COVID as well. And I think we missed him a lot on Monday. Just that little bit of quality going forward. It takes the pressure off Bamford having him in the team as well, I find. He's a good foil for him. Them two are out. Palace, their form's been kind of all over the place. They beat United on the first day. Palace are a team that are very beatable. They've got Zaha, who riding in behind can be very dangerous, but he's not at the same level Vardy is. It's a tough one to call. I mean, I'm going to try and be positive. I've got to be after Monday. So I'm going to go 3-1 Leeds.
So my thoughts on the Leeds Crystal Palace game, I think that Palace, like Kieran said, form's all over the place a bit and Leeds just back off the loss. So Leeds will want to bounce back. I think Crystal Palace, really, they rely on Zaha a bit too much. But if he turns up, they could get a result.
Yeah.
But I have a funny feeling it just won't really swing their way. And I reckon Leeds' pressure that they put on Palace might actually be a shock for them. And I'm going to predict a 2-1 Leeds win.
Go on then, Shay. What do you reckon?
Two, in my opinion, evenly matched teams. With these two managers, we have the biggest combined age of any two managers on the planet with these two coaches. Literally, I honestly think it will be a 1-1 draw between Leeds and Palace. Palace are not a bad side. I like Roy Hodgson. And Leeds never lie down, apart from obviously against Leicester, but Leeds always go for it and they'll want to respond. So I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
Bradley, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Palace are going to win this game. And the reason why is because I just think they're a fantastic team at soaking up pressure and hitting teams on the break. I think that's exactly what they're going to do this weekend. And I think it's going to be a 2-0 win to Crystal Palace.
See, just to give my thoughts on that, you're right, Bradley. They are fantastic at soaking up pressure. But
I've seen them do it to us so many times. That's where I'm watching it from. Kieran says, and they do play a high intensity. And I just think that might play directly into Crystal Palace's hands. That they're one of the best at that. They've got one of the best records against teams in the top six, and teams in the top six play expansive football. Yeah, that's my thinking behind it anyway.
I'm close to agreeing with you, but I do think Leeds have now got that bit of quality now. And I reckon Leeds is going to snatch a 2-1 win.
The thing is with Palace, whilst they do play the same way as Leicester, they haven't got the same quality as Leicester. Like James said, they rely on Zaha a lot. The thing is with Leeds, if you can beat the Leeds press and get over the pressure they put on you, you will find success. But in order to do that, you need to have quality in order to beat the press. Your passing needs to be crisp and on point, or you'll get drowned in your own half. And Palace, for me, don't have the same quality as Leicester doing that. They might do it, but if they don't, we'll drown them. And that's why I went with the win, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, next, guys, we've got Arsenal versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa, obviously, in smashing form at the start of the season. They've gone a bit downhill now, whereas Arsenal are slowly but steadily doing it. Shay, what are your thoughts, first of all?
I believe we will take them into deep waters. We will let them go. We'll throw them off the boat and we'll send the sharks to drown them and kill them and swallow them up. So I believe that we shall beat them comfortably, and I believe we will beat them 3-0.
JD, quote that for next week, because if they lose, that is going to be shared everywhere.
Well, Bradley, yeah. Hear another Arsenal fans' opinion.
Yeah, could be a banana skin. You know, it would be typical Arsenal to go and lose or draw the game. But I'm actually quite confident. I'm not as confident as a 3-0, but I do think we'll score 2. Yeah, I think 2-0 to Arsenal. Yeah, I just think we're going to have too much for Aston Villa. They haven't looked great defensively. They've looked good offensively, but we've been good defensively. Mm-hmm. Best defensive record in the league. Just get that in there. So I don't think they're going to have as much joy against our defence as they have done against other teams. Yeah.
And James, over to you, mate.
Again, probably agree with the two boys there. I think it's going to be quite a comfortable win for Arsenal, actually. I think, like Brad said, I see Arsenal getting 2 goals. I think they'll struggle to get the 2 goals just because offensively they've been lacking a bit lately. So I reckon they might get 1 in the first half and then the second one quite late on in the game when Aston Villa might be pushing for it a bit. But what will be interesting, I suppose, is whether or not Arsenal stick 5 at the back still or decide to go with a 4 at the back, now that they're playing a so-called, let's say, weaker team. But I see it being quite comfortable for Arsenal. I think Aston Villa are showing they had a good run at the start, but they're still, they're not a top 10 team.
And over to you, Kieran.
Woolwich Wanderers v Villa. This is a tricky one because on paper Arsenal should win this game. But like Bradley said, it would be very Arsenal for them to beat United and then to go and drop points against Villa. You've got to remember, Villa started well, and there's a reason they started well. They've got some very dangerous players. I think Arteta will actually go back to a back 4 for this game because it is a supposed weaker team. And that will, I think, be a mistake because anytime I see Arsenal play a back 4, they immediately look weaker at the back than when they play back 5. The key duel for me will be Partey and Grealish because this, I think, will be Partey's big test. Dealing with Grealish, he's so good with the ball at his feet, causes so many problems. That would be a key duel. It's a tricky one. I actually think this is going to be a draw. I reckon it'll be a 1-1,
See, I won't lie to you, Kieran, that was going to be my one. I was going to say that Villa have been doing a lot better than last season. Arsenal was struggling to get on a bit of a roll. And I reckon, 1-1 draw is a good choice. But anyway, moving on, we'll go to Man United versus Everton. Now, I'm going to start here and get it over with. I do reckon Everton are in for another win. They've been on such good form, and United are so up and down. I reckon it might be maybe even 3-1 win to Everton. James, I'll go over to you.
I can't say I'm confident, let's put it that way. After the Arsenal game, after the Istanbul game, it's embarrassing. The one thing I would say about Everton is since Rodriguez, I think, has been out of the team with a bit of an injury, and Richarlison's been out of the team with an injury, it's shown how key both of those players are to them. And I don't know if both of them are back or not. So I'll make the prediction assuming that both of them will be back in the team. I'm hoping for a bounce back from United, so I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to guess a 2-1 win United.
Over to Kieran.
This is another really interesting one because, like we just said, Ollie always has a thing of a couple of bad results and he'll get a good result. And like I said, this thing this week about his job being on the line in this game if they lose it, I think could be pretty accurate, to be honest. If they go and lose this, that's 3 games in a week. I think he could be gone. Saying that Everton had a great start to the season, like James said, gone off the boil a bit, a couple of bad results. I think both teams really needed some points this game. Because Ollie's job's on the line, and what we said, I actually think United are going to nick this one, I'm going to go a 1-0 to United.
What do you reckon, Shay?
2-1 to Everton. Unfortunately, it's going to be another L for Mr. Solskjaer. He's been shown to be not good enough, and Carlo Ancelotti will put him in his place. 2-1 to Everton.
Very blunt, to the point. I like it. Bradley, final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, Mikel Arteta took Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to school last weekend. Carlo Ancelotti is going to take him to college and university this weekend. I think it's going to be a 3-1. I think it's going to be a comfortable win for Everton. They've just lost 2 in a row. They need a bounce back. And I think United are going to be licking their wounds, and they're going to be continuing to lick their wounds after this weekend.
So that's a 3 or 4 out of 5 of us saying Everton to win. So James, you will be bragging about this big time if you do.
Game. Cool.
Let's see what.
I'm confident though.
So the final game we want to talk about is obviously the big one. It's City versus Liverpool. It's going to be a tough one. Obviously, City aren't in great form, but they've got such a good squad of players. I think they might be able to nick it against Liverpool, maybe a 2-1 win. Shay, I see you smiling there, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
It's a tough one because obviously Liverpool don't have Van Dijk, which makes their defence weaker, and City's defence isn't the greatest either. Ever since Company departed back to Belgium, so it's a bit of a this game could go any way. I'm not even joking. Like, there's quality all over the pitch. City, Liverpool probably with the way that Jota's playing and the quality they've got, maybe they have the advantage. I mean, it can go either way, but I think Liverpool may nick it just by 1 goal. So I'm going to say City 2, Liverpool 3.
That's an interesting choice. Bradley, do you have anything to say about your Arsenal supporting friends' predictions?
Yeah, I think this is quite a difficult one to call. In terms of the scoreline, I do think Liverpool are going to win. But in terms of the score, it could be anything. It could be almost like a basketball match, or it could be a cagey affair, you know, maybe 1-2 goals in it. I don't know. If I had to give a scoreline, I'd probably say 3-1 Liverpool. Yeah, 3-1 Liverpool. I think it's going to be pretty comfortable for them in the end.
Is a tough one to call. Van Dijk being out of the team is massive for Liverpool. I did see a bit of the Ruben Diaz Laporte combination at centre back coming together a bit against Sheffield United the other day, but it's Sheffield United. That's the thing to sort of highlight about that one. And Jota right now looks on form. Mane scored, Salah scored in the Champions League. That whole front three scored. But a big key factor I think for City is Jesus has just come back from injury as well. So they've now got an actual striker that they can put up top. So I'm going to go with the 2-2 draw. I think there's goals in the game, but I think they're leaving each other out.
And lastly, Kieran?
I think both goal nets are being classed as essential because they ain't going on lockdown this weekend. They ain't going on lockdown. They are going to be open for business because Van Dijk out of Liverpool is huge. I mentioned it earlier. City are going to get chances, and with Jesus back, they're more likely to take them. But at the other end as well, I think Diaz and Laporte have the foundations of a good partnership, but they're only just starting to. So there's definite goals in that defence. And with the form Jota's in as well, I mean, that's a call for Klopp. Does he start Jota or Firmino? Because Jota has been in red hot form. I don't know if you can drop him in the form he's been in. There's going to be goals. I think Liverpool are going to edge it. I think Liverpool just have a bit more about them. City can be very up and down, very scratchy. 4-2 Liverpool, I'm going to go.
4-2. A lot of goals then. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for your predictions. I think we'll end it for tonight. So, player of the week from last week, I think the most results was Ward-Prowse.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair one, isn't it? 2 goals versus a bit side. We'll look forward to hearing from you guys following next week's results. Thank you from John.
Cheers from James.
Thanks from Colt. Hopefully we get a Leeds win this weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys, and JD also happy 27th as well for this week.
Oh yeah,
Week
big
for
up
you.
JD.
Big up JD.
Yeah, thank you,
Man
man.
getting old.
Oh, goodbye from Bradley. Sorry, my mic was muted.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.